Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching the world. My name is Sean Driver, and the madness of the FA Cup is back. Excited for it, except for the draw is Mansfield Town. And that's not an insult to Mansfield Town. It's just when you're in the first round proper, you're hoping for an easy home game or an exciting day out away. And Mansfield being in the same league as us, being a strong competition, not really what we were looking for, but we just played you, Mansfield, and so this feels like a little bit of Deja. So let's get into it. Just from the outset, there's a lot of conversation out there on X, Twitter, YouTube, podcasts, all over the place from different people who talk about, well, do we really want to make a run in the FA Cup? Is it really for our benefit? There are some that say the EFL trophy should be a focus because that's the easiest path to get to Wembley. I'm not really a fan of that because the prize money's not there. I mean, it's fun, it's exciting, but I'm after the bucks. I think that's more beneficial for the club, and that's a run in the FA Cup. The EFL Cup, waste of time because you don't get really anything unless you win the final, and even then, it's 100,000 quid, which you get from making it to the third round in the FA Cup. So hoping that we focus, we put out a solid lineup, but you don't know what the managers are going to do. We've got injury woes. Mansfield's thin because they've been running out their guys consistently. They've been playing lots of Tuesday games and they've been into it. So I'm not certain what's going to happen. Difficult to predict, which is why this video, hopefully, is going to be short, but the last time I did it, it didn't save, and so we're back to scratch. But in any event, for Mansfield Town, lots of activity since their last match. They've been in the fourth round of the EFL Cup. They've had their one trophy game, their Trophy Cup match. They're still going there. They've got two more to make up, 2 Tuesdays to play after this one. They played on Halloween this Tuesday. For Mansfield, they did have one 10-day break just recently. They had the FGR game in round 14, I believe, that was postponed, and so they've gone from Notts County and that loss, took 10 days off, and then got Harrogate Town, started to get back going. But they've been at it. As to their outcome, well, they've only had one loss against anyone all season, all competition, and that was to Port Vale on Tuesday. Other than that, in League Two and in the EFL Trophy, they drew against AFC Wimbledon 0-0. They had a home win 3-2 against Doncaster Rovers in the EFL Trophy. They had a very impressive, and I watched it, it was an exceptionally impressive 4-1 thumping of Notts County. They had a very similar performance against Harrogate Town, where the score was also 4-1. Return home win against Walsall 2-1, and then obviously that loss against Port Vale 1-0. I'm going to bring up the stats here. Mansfield has played one less game in the competition, League Two competition, than we have, so they're per 90 stats or percentages. But let me just say this, I don't think we can rely on any of them because who knows what either side is going to do. But I will say, as far as styles, you look at the shots, the teams are first and second. 6.12 for us, 6 for them. The save percentages, I don't know if you can take much from that because I don't expect the starters to be in. Ogonkwo's been at 81.3% for the 7 games he's been in. Howard's certainly capable, and for John H. deserves to have an opportunity. I hear that message quite frequently, and I don't know if I necessarily agree, but it's a fun little bit of banter that he and I have going back and forth on that. So then, now that we've seen Mansfield Town, and for myself, I've seen them 3 times, Notts County, Port Vale, and our own match. But for Wrexham playing against Mansfield, where I suggest we had the issue was trying to advance the ball forward from our back line to our midfield. They put a lot of pressure on our midfield, were able to gain possession, and even when we were able to crack it, we hit not a wall, I would say, as their center backs, but just very capable, agile, mobile, smart, well-positioned center backs and a back line. So they were a struggle to get through, especially the middle two. So as you look at the style matchups between the two teams, we're a little bit more direct than they are. They have a little bit extra possession. The shots are equal. We're a little bit more accurate with respect to our shots on target, but they do not allow any shots against. And so it is going to be a challenge. One thing I will say is, as poor as Wrexham has been defensively, there's been a significant improvement there. In the last 7 games since Ogonkwo's taken the reins, our goals against is 1.0. Still not as good as Mansfield, but there's not a gaping deficiency between the two clubs in that regards. I expect this to be a low-scoring game, and I'll throw my prediction out there right now. I'm going to say that because of depth, Wrexham actually takes this one 2-1, but I'm saying that because what I'm really hoping for is there's not a draw, as much as I'd like to see an extra game back in the racecourse and get a little bit more footy in. I'm hoping that if we're going to make a run at the FA Cup and we're going to maintain our position in League Two, that we're not struggling to get through these by having to end up with replays all the way through. So as I said, impossible to predict the lineups, but I did take a look at players who have had runouts for each of the squads. Wrexham has put out 29 players. Obviously, a lot of those before the 22-player squad limit came into play. But Mansfield has only run out 23 players. So there is some suggestion that we can make that we're a little bit deeper. But just as I say, we may be deeper. A concern is we've got some significant injuries going out, and they're starting to get some guys back from injury. McLaughlin and Oates being added to the squad. So that's going to be an additional defender who is exceptionally capable, a little bit older, but able to get it done in Macker. And then Oates up front, as I'm to understand, not having seen him, a poacher who's able to sort of score from anywhere. Not really what you want to see on the squad, but we'll see if they actually get some playing time. They did get a brief little run out. I believe it was in the Port Vale match. As to looking forward, what did we learn from our game against Mansfield Town, and where did the stats match up? I think the game went sort of as anticipated. Aiden Flint, best center back in the league seen so far. I said that when I looked at his numbers, and when they're gaudy, they're insane. You look at his previous match stats, or his statistics from when we previously played. At that point in time in the season, 99th percentile in ground duels, 99th percentile in air duels won. He had 94th percentile in clearances. He was just solid green all the way through. A little bit of a step down since then. His interceptions aren't as high. His ground duels aren't as high. One of the things that Port Vale showed us is there is potentially an opportunity to attack on the ground rather than through the air. So I'm looking at that center of our midfield again as being key, and maybe it is Cannon just running at him again and seeing if he can mix things up and create some problems. Going back to his stats here, you just look at the clearances are there. He's getting in the minutes. He hasn't taken a day off. He is the best center back that I've seen so far, which is why I'm saying it's just an FA Cup game, Mansfield Town. Aiden Flint's played too many minutes, and I think this would be an appropriate one for him to take off. The other impressive player who was in the mix for Mansfield throughout was Keeler Dunn, the former Wrexham man. Dangerous in every sense of the word. He had a header missed. He had a one that went off the post, and he had a strike that he interestingly and uniquely potentially got it off on the outside of his boot that went to the right. I will say, seeing him live, his impressive capacity to not just get shots away quickly, but the deception that was involved by the angles that he was using with his feet was something that I haven't seen too many players employ, and I was impressed by it. He's a tricky guy in the middle, and I mean, his stats are still solid. The one thing is he hasn't scored since September 30th. Prior to that, he was at a 0.85 goals per game streak, which you just can't maintain that. He's now down to 0.56. And so that's getting closer to normal. But you look at his stats, he's still all up there. His shots taken, shots on target. The only thing that's maybe come down a little bit is his shot conversion rate, but that's to be expected because you can't just keep that pace up forever. But he is very impressive. So just to say this, Mansfield is a very structured team. Their sum is greater than their parts, but they have two very key pieces, and that being Flint and Keeler Dunn, and expect them, if they do indeed play, to be impressive again. We shall see. Keeler Dunn can take the day off too. Another player who didn't show up on the stats and actually has unimpressive stats, who played a lot better game than I anticipated, was Aaron Lewis. It was difficult looking at the stats to understand the role that he played. Now by seeing him, he's an on-the-ground creator through the midfield and on the right side. He nicks a lot of ball. He's in the right place to get interceptions. He's just a bee in the bonnet to people on their right side. No finish though. And it's almost as though he's a little bit panicky around the box, just not able to get foot on ball or to make that final pass from the midfield stripe to the edge of the box. He was exceptionally impressive, and then it just sort of fell off in all three games that I saw, and frustratingly. So I will say, as coming from Canada, where we compliment people for their flow, meaning their their hair. He's got a pretty impressive flow with that dyed blonde. He reminds me exactly of the hockey character that you would anticipate that type of player to have. Lots of flash, a little bit smaller, bit of a chip on his shoulder. I actually like it. I was impressed with Lewis. He just runs around and does his business. He's not aggressive. He's not annoying. He's a pest in the way that you want a player to be a pest, because he's going to strip ball. The nice thing about doing these videos in advance and having them to look back on is sometimes opposing fans join and make comments with respect to my summary and analysis. Obviously, I'm using statistics. There are limitations, but Stockport County, they ran a bunch of people in. Notts ran a bunch of people in. Mansfield Town actually had a fair number, and it surprised me a little bit. But one of them, Mansfield 2089, commented, and unfortunately 2 of the comments were deleted. But he corrected me on Akens. I wrote it down as Akens, so if I mispronounced in the previous video, that's on me, and then that was a mistake. He also said that they played better than Wrexham, and I don't agree with that. They had more possession than we did, but I think we were stronger in the counterattack. I don't think that Mansfield was really a threat. I never felt like there was a concern going on with the game. I thought that the score was exactly what was deserved in the circumstances. But we did have a disagreement on one player, and that was Bowery. I will give credit. I did have Bowery in the wrong position. That's because footy stats and Wikipedia put him as a forward, where in actuality he's now moved into the back line on the right side, typically the right side. So I didn't get the volume of statistics that were in the defensive position to note that that's where he was there. Didn't look it up, and so that was the discussion, and so he corrected me on that. But the one where we had the big debate was on Lucas Akens, and that's their right winger. He basically took the position that Akens is one of the best players on their team, and that I completely underestimated him, and that the stats are a fraud, and it's why you can't rely on them. And I don't see it on person or on the stats. Look, when you're looking for a right winger, what are you looking for? You're looking for somebody who's going to be able to contribute and support up front, whether that be crosses, key passes into the box, potentially their own shots and getting things through. They're also somebody who's going to be comfortable coming back and nicking ball, interceptions, ground duels, being a pest, similar to Lewis on the other side. And Akens didn't do that for me in any of the games that I've seen him. And you take that and say, okay, I haven't seen it. I get it. I'm one person. Maybe I've missed it. Maybe he's just played bad in the games that I've signed in to, which means Akens can play for all I care. Especially if I'm watching, because he doesn't perform well, apparently. But I took the stats, and I'm going to bring them up both for his dribbling, his passing, and his shots. And I mean, he's in the red when it comes to dribbling and being dispossessed with the ball. His passing, his pass completion rate, he's in the red. The stats are not perfect, but they certainly are the best predictive measure we have as to what type of quality we're getting from the player. And when it comes to his offensive support, he's not there in a supporting role. In a shooting role, somewhat better, and especially recently. He's got 3 goals, I think, in the last 5 or 6 games. So he's been getting better there. So what do we expect, and what did we see? Well, we didn't get that much from the previous game. We saw that they were strong defensively. We saw that we struggled getting it through the midfield and moving the ball forward. This was a middle third battle, and it probably will be. So do I expect some changes there? Yes. Does that mean Cannon comes in again? Because he's shown from his match against Notts that he's got some capacity to take the charge and the lead there. Does that mean Luke Young gets drawn in? I don't know what's going to happen, but whatever does happen, it's going to be those small battles in the middle of the field that determine this. As for a prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Wrexham. I think that there are going to be some goals in these squads. They're too talented to go 0-0 again. What I'm hoping to avoid is a 1-1 draw. And I think that's certainly probable, likely. I don't want it, because then you're just playing extra games to get the replay in back in Wrexham. So that's the assessment. Look, we're going to be back with the watch party. Whether you're watching this before and it's just about to start, or you're watching it before we get to the game. Brendan's going to lead that one, because ESPN Plus has the game covered in all of the countries that ESPN Plus broadcasts. They don't in Canada, and Sportsnet doesn't have it. So I will be listening to the game. If you're in the UK, you've got it obviously on BBC or S4C in Welsh or in English. So there's some opportunities there. Join us for the watch party. Have a chat. Get into the conversation. Hit the subscribe button below. every time I threaten to show my legs, somebody hits the subscribe button. So maybe, well, I should have probably done that earlier. It's too late now. Anyways, go ahead and click that button. Join us for the watch party. My name is Sean Driver. This is the Red Horde, and we'll see you later.